Welcome to today's show, Synergy, and we have a very special guest on today. Michael Cartwright is joining us from Tennessee. I'm right on Tennessee, right?
That is
Oh,
correct.
good.
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, your video just went out, Michael.
Sorry
Oh,
about that.
there we go.
There we go.
And the book we'll be talking about is Believable Hope. I read this book one night at work, and I found myself sitting there going, "Yep, that works. Yep, that works. Yep, that works. Yep, that works." And usually when I start going through a book and I'm just yupping it to death, it's because I've tried the things that are in it and I found them empirically that they work. So Michael,
What did you find? I'd love to hear your experience with it.
well, I mean, looking at mentorship and so on and so forth, starting to change the attitude. When you were talking about, I think your grandmother's comment early on was pulling the weeds.
Yeah.
When there's nothing to do, just do something and put one foot in front of the other one and get out there and start changing the attitude. Start looking at what can be done. So there was a lot in there that I found, that I related to, that I found very useful. And, I think you mentioned Wayne Dyer in there and so on. And that was one of the guys that I've been reading a lot of lately. And, just the whole positivity, the manifestation and so on and so forth that I've been reading
Yeah,
of Dyer's lately.
there's a lot more science behind that than I think people realize. Neurolinguistic programming's been around since the late 60s. And, really how you program your mind and what you think of yourself and what you think of your surroundings can have a profound impact over time. And there's a lot of science and research studies that have been done about it. I think a lot of people look at it. I don't know if you remember the book, The Secret. It was about positive thinking and surrounding yourself with others and things like that. And again, I think sometimes if you come out, it may sound simplistic or unrealistic, but it's totally true. It's kind of like what your parents or grandparents said to you when you grew up. You are who you hang out with, right? You are what you think of yourself. You become who you think you are. Then you have to take the steps to make that a reality. But you've got to have a destination of where you're trying to go, visualize that destination, put a very specific game plan to get you from point A to point B, and then start implementing it. There's no magic to it. There's no, I'm going to wish for this and it become true. It really is stating a fact that I want to get to this point in my life, or I want to change this about my life, or I want to do this in my life. And I'm going to put a specific action plan in place. It's not, I'm going to wish it to happen. It's, I'm going to put some things in place to make it more likely that it's going to happen. If I want to stay clean and sober, it's more likely that I'm going to stay clean and sober if I'm around people that are clean and sober, right?
Absolutely.
Stay away from the bars, stay away from drug dealers, stay away from areas and activities that you know is going to be detrimental to your recovery. It's the same kind of concept. It's tried and true how it works. I think a lot of people try to make it, like we're wishing this is going to come true for our lives, but it's not. And then you got to put a lot of hard work into it to make that come true.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I know people that are on the secret, the manifestation front, and they'll be like, I need money. And, so they're just, meditating a little bit, thinking about, a big check coming in, and that would be nice. But I found oftentimes when I'll visualize, okay, I need money for this project or something, maybe what becomes available is some overtime at work, and, there's a, I've heard this before too. There was, a guy stranded on a flood, praying for to be he was on a roof and he's praying for God to send, to help him out and save the day. And
Right.
a boat comes by and he says, no, I'm praying for help. Oh, you got cats too. I'm praying for help. And so the boat leaves and then a chopper comes and they're going to take him off the roof. He's like, no, that's okay. I'm praying for help. And finally, he swept away in the floodwaters and dies. And he goes up to heaven. And he's like, well, hey, I was praying for Ellen. And God's like, well, I sent you a boat and a helicopter. Why didn't you go with them? So I mean, some of
It's
this
true.
stuff, is just, and my grandmother always said, birds of a feather flock together. I mean, there's a lot of truth in these old cliches.
Mhm.
It's like, well, I hang out with 6 millionaires, I'll probably be millionaire number 7. I hang out with 6 active alcoholics, I'll probably be active alcoholic number 7.
It
So,
is true. It is totally true. You know how um, I wanted to make money as a young man. I grew up without, and was fortunate enough to go to some good schools because my grandmother had resources, but my parents did not. And
mhm.
I'd always wanted, right. I'd seen what others had, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna work my butt off and make that happen. And what I realized, it's not just hard work, right? It is mentorship. I was very fortunate to find mentors at 18, at 24, at 28 that taught me how to make money. Like they literally taught me the process. And it wasn't me wishing it, it wasn't me dreaming it. Also, what they taught me was I would need to work maybe 6 to 7 hours a day, 12 hours a day to make my dreams a reality. I think a lot of people think that it's easy to create a business or to create income, but it really is a lot of hard work and a lot of risk that you're usually taking to see if it comes about. And sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it does. But you're giving yourself a much better percentage odds if you're hanging out with people that have already been there, done that. And I was very fortunate to find mentors that taught me how to do it.
Yeah, well, I find that, for me, most of my life I spent complaining. I'd go to work 8 hours a day and I was still using drugs. I was still drinking and I would complain, oh, my life is terrible. My life sucks. This is horrible. But,
Mhm.
what did I do in the interim? Did I work harder at work? No, I wasn't doing that. I was just complaining about how much the job sucked. I didn't spend any
Mhm.
extra time or effort there. And then what I do when I get home, I just sit in front of the boob tube and drink,
Right.
so I'm spending very little time actually looking at it, because I've been amazed since I've been sober. I mean, I was not the most diligent guy, and I just put a little bit of time into some creative pursuits, not an inordinate amount of time, but I'll write for an hour a day.
Mhm.
I will put some stuff out on social media. I'll look at some things that I can be doing. And oh, your video went out. And those things, just a little bit of time here and there, and I meditate and I think about them, and I'll bring those goals forth several times a day. And what am I doing today toward that goal? What am I doing today towards this goal? What am I doing today towards this? And if I go a couple of days without doing anything toward them, I start stagnating.
Mhm.
I start feeling a little stagnant and so forth.
It
I
takes,
want.
speaking of goals in the book, I talk a lot about putting your plan in place. And one of the things that I do each year is put a game plan for that year in place. I start around Thanksgiving, thinking about what I want my next year to look like. And then between Christmas and New Year's, I'll put on a piece of paper or just in a note section in my phone. I look at the 7 life areas of my life, whether it be health, whether it be family, whether it be friendships, whether it be education, work, and employment, whether it be my health or mental health. And I look at those areas and ask myself what improvements need to be made. And I don't try to overwhelm myself with 30 things to do, but I do try to take big chunks and go, what areas of my life am I trying to improve? Simple thing this year, I have eczema really bad. And so this year, one of the things under health I gave up was dairy. So I have to commit myself to 1 full year of giving up dairy, and I'll do that. We'll see if I'll do it again in 2023. I'm not so sure.
Yeah, hard to avoid the
after
ice
one month
cream.
in, after
Hard
one
to
month in
avoid.
of no dairy. Right. So
Yeah.
each year I take, different areas of my life. I started that out when I was a case manager. When I first got into the field in 1992, I started out at a place called the Mental Health Cooperative, and we did case management with people with serious mental illness in the community. And what I would do when I was writing a treatment plan, I would look at the 7 life domains and design the treatment plan around the areas of their life that are the most dysfunctional within those 7 life domains. And I kind of took that forward to my own life, not necessarily it being in crisis anymore, but there's always an area of your life that you can enhance.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it takes work. It's not just I'm going to, I'm going to give up dairy and I dream about it and I think about it. No, I take action on it. And I do the steps necessary. I get rid of all the milk in my house, get rid of all the cheese. I educate myself on it, and now I've got to live with that decision for the next year. And so that's really what it's about. It's really about getting back control of your life, right? And you really have the ability inside you to change the trajectory of your life. You do.
The believable hope that you instilled. I mean, that was the big one in that book, because I could look back at my time. I went through your program in Laguna, and and I was a mess. I was, I was a mess I was there for 2 months. And your video went out.
I'm sorry. I'm
okay.
getting phone calls. It's just phone calls.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. I just I was a big mess, and there were guys there, and I overwhelming. Well, everybody there was helpful, but what I remembered most from that experience was there were just some guys on the floor that were treatment advocates, treatment assistants. I forgot what they were called there. But they had 3, 4, maybe 5 years recovery, and they were honest. They couldn't take my, I had one guy, Sean, he is like, if I could magically take your pain away by touching you on the shoulder, I would do that, because he's watching me suffer, he's watching me go through it. But the thing that stuck out in my mind was he was honest. He was honest about his his recovery, that he had gone through similar things, and he was just another bozo on the bus, so to speak, and then he did certain stuff and changed his life. So that started this much of the door opening to having a little, well, maybe why not me? Why not me? I've been through it, and I had a lot of past experience of failure. I failed at many, many different rehabs and stuff. And so I had a lot of experience in failure. And so why not me? Oh, because you failed 29 times before. So that's why. So getting over that little hump. But I just maybe I will. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. And just that, I think that little bit started opening the door. And you have, you have a tremendous background in co-occurring disorders too. I not only, I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg. I don't know for me whether it was the adding all kinds of substances. I'm sure that exacerbated the mental illness as well, and what mental illness was pre-existing prior to discovering substances. Can you expound a little bit on that, please? On your background.
Yeah. I mean, individuals have substance use disorder independently, right? And you also can have a mental health disorder independently of the substance use disorder. And obviously, the substance use disorder will exacerbate your mental health condition. It also can cause the mental health condition, right? Use of alcohol can cause depression. Use of methamphetamine can cause psychosis. So there are drugs out there that can mimic or can, cause mental health issues. But for me, you know what? Let me put my phone on airplane mode. I keep getting phone call after phone call. That way, it won't disrupt our video. You there?
Yep, I am here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Interrupt anymore. I apologize.
No problem. And you were telling us a little bit about the differences in what exacerbates
you can have them independently, or you can have them co-occurring together, right? Where you have both issues simultaneously. For me, myself, I have both issues, right? And I have since I was young. It's hereditary, genetic, both the mental health and the substance abuse. So I was fortunate to get both genes. and have struggled with mental health issues my entire life. We'll always have some issue within that realm that I'll need to be cognizant and aware of. Fortunately, I've been in remission for my substance use disorder for 29 years, but I also need to stay very vigilant and active with that as well. I still converse with my sponsor, who I met him 3 weeks into the program. He's in his mid 80s now, and a wonderful, wonderful man. Still have mentors and go to meetings and try to help others and stay vigilant with the program. But I also know my mental health condition's not going away, right? It wasn't caused by my substance use disorder. It certainly was exacerbated by it, but it wasn't caused by it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and that's sometimes you got to figure that out. And it sometimes will take 6 months to a year post no drugs and alcohol in your system to really make some of those determinations.
Well, you had to do a lot of advocacy for yourself in finding the right mental health providers to, to work with you on your goals. I mean, you've
Well, 30 years ago, you got to realize going into an AA meeting, telling people you're on medications was heresy, right? And so I struggled with it in AA meetings, and that led to meeting a guy named Tim Hamilton, who him and I helped create an organization called Dual Recovery Anonymous, which is about 3,000 meetings nationwide now. He created a book called The 12 Steps of Dual Disorders. And I read that book, and at the end of it, it said, if you want to go to a DRA meeting, give me a call. So I called Tim, and there was one in the entire country in Kansas. And so him and I both went around the country and set up meetings, and funded actually by the federal government and state of Tennessee to help encourage people to do integrated treatment, set up DRA meetings, that kind of thing. So yeah, I did spend a lot of time in DC on the advocacy front when mental health parity came around. Early on, when mental health parity was introduced, substance abuse was left out of it altogether. So substance use disorder would not have been included in parity if it had passed in 2006. Luckily, it passed in 2007, and with the help of the Kennedy family, actually got substance use disorder included in the Parity Act. And I think that made a tremendous help to our field overall. So yeah, I've been fortunate to create a lot of treatment centers to help a lot of people, do advocacy work. I found that being around people in recovery and helping others only helps my own recovery.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, I tried not overwhelm new addicts and alcoholics and, with co-occurring disorder myself, because had I been told all the things I needed to do on a daily basis to, put these things at ease right in the beginning, I would have been like, oh my God, what an order. I can't go through with it. So I put these things in, like you were saying with changing the dairy. It was a little bit at a time. It was piecemeal, it was how, let's get through a day and see how that goes. And, and try some of these things that other people are doing. Were any areas of therapy more effective for you? You mentioned NLP at the beginning of our conversation. And
I think two things, both helped me and then also implemented it through our programs. Neurolinguistic programming, I really do. I think it's highly underutilized in our sessions with patients these days. I do think we stay too much in the problem and not enough into where we're trying to get to, right? And so if I'm in Nashville trying to get to LA, I don't necessarily need to be constantly looking at the map of Nashville. I need to be figuring out how am I going to get from Nashville to LA. And so really just getting that, getting people focused on the promotion of recovery itself and that lifestyle, I think is really, really healthy as well.
Yeah, in the beginning for me, I need some pretty simplistic instructions. My brain was a little bit, it just, and the old timers would tell me things like, well, just go to a lot of meetings, go to a lot of meetings and try to listen and have a cup of coffee and so forth.
And that's where I think motivational interviewing comes in. Motivational interviewing was created about 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. So when I came into the field, it really wasn't being implemented. Motivational interviewing is really where you're trying to motivate the client to see the problem themselves and help them see how they can create the solution themselves and not judging the person. When I first got into the program and got clean and sober, I'm sure I was like everybody else. I thought that if you drank, you probably overdrank and you needed to quit. And so I wanted to be a little bit of judgmental on whether someone needed to quit their behavior. And what I found over time is that just doesn't work, right? Telling somebody they have a problem doesn't necessarily solve the problem. It's getting them to recognize there's a problem and getting them to come up with the solution to that problem and how they're going to implement it. That's the trick. That is, as a counselor, it is our job to get that person in a position, in a place where they see that problem is real and they're going to now do something to solve it. It's called action state of change. There's pre-contemplation, there's contemplation, then there's action, right? And then there's also relapse. You got to also realize that some people are going to relapse, right? Yep. You got pre-contemplation, contemplation, determination, action, and relapse. And people are on different phases of this wheel. And if you go to somebody that's pre-contemplative and tell them they need treatment, they need to go to meetings, wrong answer. This is an individual that does not even believe they have a problem, let alone trying to tell them that they need to put an action plan in place. So a lot of times when we're counseling people, we have the answer, we know what they need to do, but we're not necessarily understanding where that person is in their process. And if they're in a pre-contemplative or a contemplative standpoint, you need to educate them. You need to step back, educate them about the issue, educate them about their situation and how it's adversely affect their situation, and give them a light bulb moment of, aha, okay, now what do I do about this problem? I've got a broken leg. How do I fix it? And so that is the key. And I think early on when I was working with people, I would always tell them what worked for me and how to do it and how they could do it and just expect them to follow my path. And what I've realized is no one needs to follow my path. They need to follow their own path. And I can give them some areas of guidance of how that path should look, but they've got to choose the path.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, that absolutely makes sense. I mean, I used motivational interviewing for my peer certification and trying to meet people where they are rather than to, I don't need to tell them my whole story every time I sit down and have a conversation. I usually just listen to them, listen to what they're talking about. And if there is something that I have that of offer to them, but most of the people that I work with are they're in action phase. They're coming to rehab and stuff like that. So they're at least at the very beginning, or, there's sometimes court
but think about it,
orders
even if they're in treatment, doesn't mean that they're in action.
Yeah.
It means that they could be in contemplation or pre-contemplation, but there's been an external factor like a job or a wife that's forced them into treatment. And
Absolutely.
so the only thing you got to tease out is, do they really believe this is a problem, or are they trying to do this to get out of their current situation?
Yeah, I've seen
Does that make
that.
sense?
I've seen that a lot. All that was with myself too. There were many times I went to treatment to put out the fires. I was having problems with work. I was having problems with my home life, my relationships. All those areas that are affected by active addiction. And
Right.
well, how can I save the day here for now? I'll take a trip to rehab and I'll come home and I'll start saying things like first things first, and easy does it. But I wasn't really doing what was necessary. I would take it piecemeal, because I think
you were half measured.
yeah, half measures. And over the years, a lot of people telling me I'm taking half measures, but my experience was, and I've seen this, I think that alcoholics and addicts as a population are usually smarter than the average bear, and in general. And if you got by juggling your addiction and put 20% into your relationship, your job, and you still were better than the worst person at work, so you weren't getting fired and stuff. Well, I'd come in and I would be like, well, I'll just put 20% into this AA thing and and this recovery thing, and
it'll all work out.
Yeah, it'll all work. Yeah, and it would, and it wouldn't. Wouldn't, because they were right. Okay, I'm gonna have to. I really,
I think all addicts try that. Right. I think that doesn't everyone. I tried to first stop at 18. That's when I went to my first AA meeting. And then I got sober at 24. And so between 18 and 24, yeah, I wanted it, but not really. I just wanted to not be a problem. I wanted it to not be a problem. Like, how do I not black out? How do I not get a DUI? How do I get through college? I just wanted to figure out how to successfully use like everybody else did, right? And what we realize is that we're 10% of the population that has an aversion. We're allergic to this substance, and we can't take any of it into our system, right? And that's so frustrating to think that you can't have any of it into your system anymore.
Oh yeah, I bounced around with everything, you know. Okay, I'll just smoke pot now.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just do this now. I'll just do this now. You know, I really went through the gamut myself of trying every different combination and concoction before I don't even think I don't think I wanted to be sober when I got sober either. You know, I mean, my wife was like, you know, she had been going to those Al-Anon meetings, you know, and learning about enabling and so on and so forth. And she became like a non-enabling commando. You're not coming in the house. You're intoxicated. Go sit in the car in the driveway. Oh, well, I'm out of here. Oh, no, you're not. I'll call the police and they'll arrest you because you have. And she would have. And she did many things to, and I had big resentments against her, when I came in, it was good for her. And I'm surprised, I mean, she was done with me. She was like, we're getting divorced. I'm going to try to help you get on your feet financially before I do it. You're the father of our children, and I don't want to see you. So I think I wanted to stay sober more than I wanted to stand on the street corner and beg for money. That was about as much as I wanted to stay sober, but it turned out that was enough. Your grandmother was an instrumental part in and you like building yourself back up once you started getting a little coherence in there and stuff like that. It was,
she was huge in my entire life. I mean, she was a very, very special person, very giving person, very caring person, did lots and lots of charitable work with her time, just selfless in how she acted and never complained, had plenty of problems in life, grew up in the Depression. Her family lost their family farm, lost everything they had, moved to Nashville, and she kind of scrapped it out. And she expected us to do the same, right? Whatever you face in life, you work through that problem and deal with it. And if you have a disability or an affliction, you deal with that and you find ways to live with it, right? She didn't look at having a disability as a reason to not live your life and achieve whatever you wanted in life, and didn't see it as an excuse. And so that was really nice to have somebody on my side and really understand me and love me and not judge me, right? Most of my family judged me, wanted to tell me how messed up I was and the direction I was going was wrong. And she would just hug me and tell me everything was okay and give me some simplistic things to do on a regular basis to, go in the right direction. And when I finally got sober, it was really, I was about 2 years in to sobriety when she passed. And, I'm really glad she got to see that.
Yeah, that's great. I think that most of, I'll speak from my own personal experience. Most of my life was blaming everything on circumstance. And if this one had done this for me, if that had happened, then this would have happened. And why didn't they take care of me? And getting out of that mindset of blaming everyone and finding fault with everything that happened. I think, someone early on in my recovery showed me all the things that I was entitled to in life, and it was a blank piece of paper. I didn't like that very much, And he's like, conversely, though, whatever you work for, you can probably get, if you work hard enough on it. And so personal responsibility, that self-advocacy and looking at, well, I have bipolar, but I have ADHD, so I interrupt a lot. Well, that doesn't make people want to converse with you. What can you do about it? Oh, shut up here and there and listen to what they have to say. So, I think it sounds like personal responsibility had a big part in your success.
Yeah, no, I think she was a big advocate of, you create what you want to create a life. Like you make you make, what is it, lemonade out of lemons, right? It really is your choice of the direction you want to take your life in. And we're all going to have tragedies in our life. We're all going to have disabilities of some sort to deal with. It's how we respond to those tough situations. It's how we respond to a broken arm. It's how we respond to a broken brain that really defines our life and what we're going to do with it. And so she just didn't really accept any excuses, right? There was no excuse of why you couldn't do something. If you got your arms and limbs and legs and eyes and brain, like you can compete with anybody else. And she really instilled that into me. And I really believed I could do anything that I set my mind to. And I really believe you can. You may need to educate yourself, may need to put yourself in a different situation, may take you 10 years to achieve whatever you're trying to do. But if you're serious about it and you put a game plan together and surround yourself with people that can show you how to get there, and that's kind of what she showed me, that you really can do anything in life. And when I got struck down with mental illness early in life, she just did not accept that as a reasonable response. And I was diagnosed with about the, harshest diagnosis you can get in life, in my opinion. And she still just didn't accept it, right? She just said, get a job, work, you'll be able to raise a family, just learn yourself and figure out how to work within who you are and some of your disabilities. And she was totally right. And my mental illness has never gone away totally, but it is definitely something that I've been able to learn how to deal with and put people around me to support me in a way that's healthy.
Yeah, I've experienced that myself personally. I think I had PTSD prior to even, using drugs, and, some trauma that happened. And,
Right.
And then the bipolar, that was a diagnosis that was made with over 6 months sobriety,
Mhm.
major depression and stuff like that. I mean, and today I could say I'm lucky. I'm not, I don't like lucky. I'm blessed. I'm blessed enough to say that I don't have to take anything for any of those at this moment,
Yeah.
but there was a lot to be done. There was a lot to be done. Oh, let's change my social structure. Let's change, how, my diet. Let's change,
Mhm.
what I do for exercise. If I'm depressed in the morning and I made a commitment to be somewhere, well, maybe I gotta put on my pants and go anyway, regardless of how I feel. And
And think about all the things that you just said change. And you know what people are most scared of?
change,
Change.
change,
Yeah.
change.
And
Absolutely.
so some of that is like, you're right. As addicts, as drug addicts, we have to change quite a bit. Like we have to redesign our life, right? Where we live, how we hang out, maybe even where we work from time to time, to be able to stay successful in recovery. That's a lot of change, right? And we go, well, how do we get success with that? Like, how do you convince people that they really need to make that many alterations to their life to be successful at recovery? It's tough,
Yeah.
right? And that's what requires a really good therapist, really good counselor to motivate that client to see that they can take control of their own life.
Mm, mm. What was the most difficult part? I mean, you built a lot in your and you built it up and built it a lot very quickly. What was the most difficult part of doing that, of making that climb, formulating AAC and so on
Well,
and so forth?
yeah, I'd have to say the very first project I ever did was the hardest. I started this in 1995. So I didn't really start, it didn't go quickly, just to be clear. I mean, AAC may have created quickly, but it's only because I had 15 years experience. So in 1995, I created a halfway house for men with schizophrenia and addiction, 8-bed male facility in Nashville. And for 2 years, we had no funding, had no contracts, had no resources, and were really able to put together a very, very good program on a lot of volunteer work. Had a volunteer psychologist, had volunteer psychiatrist. My time was volunteer, and we were able to put together a really solid co-occurring disorders program. Now, we only served 8 people at a time, very small, but that led to an organization called Foundations Associates, which actually at one time served about 1,000 people a day in the Nashville area with case management, outpatient services, residential services. So I actually created a company called Foundations before I ever created a company called American Addiction Centers. And I worked there from 1995 all the way to 2009. And we had facilities in Nashville, Memphis, Atlanta, California, and in my opinion, some of the best co-occurring treatment in the United States in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I left there in 2009 and thought I was going to retire and do some volunteer work, and ended up coming back in 2011 and creating American Addiction Center with a lot of really great people. But we created that company with a lot of folks that had already been in the industry for decades. The two founders had been in the industry for decades. My mentor, a guy named Lucius Birch, helped fund the project. He had actually helped create a HCA, one of the largest healthcare organizations in the country. So I had a lot of really, really good, smart people involved in that organization to get it going so quickly.
It sounds like people are the greatest resource.
I think so. I think when you look at what we do, we're a service organization, right? So we deliver a service. So in my opinion, a service organization, their number one asset is the people that provide service.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank Michael Cartwright for joining us on Synergy, and you know, any comments or questions you can put in for me underneath help with the goal of this show, which is brainstorming toward mentorship for at-risk people and helping people with recovery. So thank you so much for joining us, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good to talk to you again, Paul. I appreciate what you do up there in Rhode Island, helping people struggle, and common interest, and anything I can do to help and support, happy to do it. I'm at Apex Recovery now. That's where I'm at. Just started back in the field. Anything you guys need help, just give us a call.
Oh, definitely. And
All right.
if you have anyone in the Northeast that needs help anytime, anywhere, just you got my number, just you know, text me and I will get up and I'll put on my pants and go see what I can do.
Sounds good, Paul. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
Yeah, great chatting today. See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.